I've talked to a lot of business owners where they feel like they have to sit down and design this big LMS and design this big thing. And it takes lots of time. All you need to do is document it while you do the process. And I tell business owners, this is what's called a +1. Okay, you have to go out in the field. You don't want to go out in the field, but you have to go out in the field. You have to go out and take care of this weird, complicated, nuanced thing, whether it's a unique painting project or an existing condition that kind of only you know how to solve. Great. Do the +1 of videoing exactly what that scenario is so it can be saved for later, or get a testimonial from the customer. There's a +1. Get some before and after photos, turn it into a marketing thing. Just one extra additional work on the business thing that is on top of whatever the work in the business thing is.
Welcome to the Painter Growth Podcast, where we help you scale your painting company in record time. Join us as we explore sales, marketing, hiring, finances, leadership, and more, everything that you need to know to scale and grow your painting business. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. What's up, everyone? Mike Hickman here, founder of paintergrowth.com, and you're listening to the Painter Growth Podcast. And you're here with my good friend and one of my absolute favorite guests, and your guys' favorite guest too, Mr. Brandon Vaughn.
What's up, everybody? What's up, Mike? Thanks for having me, man. Happy to be here.
Awesome having you here, man. It was great hanging out with you at Expo.
Likewise.
Everyone getting together in Denver at the Broadmoor. I feel like if you haven't been to the Broadmoor, you don't get it.
Yeah, dude. When I showed up for the first time, I felt like I was in a time warp. Like, where am I? It was
everywhere.
Yeah, I remember when we were at the restaurant and that gal came in. It's like, don't say anything, otherwise I'll get fired. I think everyone kind of may live under that type of regime to have that level of systems and experiences that one strike and you're out. Like if the doorman ran to the door to open it for me, it felt like his job depended on it.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like the Disney experience, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It's like a really sought after job, but it's not that good of a job.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But I mean, shoot, I think they said that the tenure of employees there was like an average of something ridiculous, like 18 years. So people apparently like it enough to stay. So that says something.
Yeah. I mean, I looked up their open door score, and it was like a 2.2.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Maybe people are scared to leave. Maybe that's the real subtext.
Yeah. I mean, this comes down to a concept that I think you're really passionate about. And I mean, you live and you breathe, which is like leadership, leading from behind, servant leadership, and like those types of organizations. I think they kind of rule by iron fist. I mean, including like Disney. We're going to Orlando in a couple of months for our mastermind. And, we had the Broadmoor. Like Disney is very militant with how it leads its team.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to be, though, especially with the demographic of workers that have a very high level of distraction and addiction to electronic devices and probably withdrawal symptoms in the middle of the day. Like you have to just systemize the heck out of everything. I think you just have to kind of have that approach if you want to have that level of consistency happen all the time, because you can't really automate the people side of it to that extent. You have to have them trained. You have to have those, those.
Well, Amazon has tried to automate the people side of it. Have you heard about what they're doing with like?
No, what was it?
There's some. They track so many data points per employee in their factory, from like how many packages they're processing per hour and per minute, to the point where they don't even have time to go across the factory floor to the bathroom. So like there was this expose last year where they were finding a bunch of these Amazon employees that were peeing in jugs at their workstations because they couldn't leave.
Oh my gosh. Maybe you've gone too far, Amazon. Maybe you need to lighten up a little bit.
They're paying for Jeff Bezos's rocket dreams.
What's interesting is I had a case where an employee that quit called to report one of our managers who had said on the job site, the manager refused to let him go use the bathroom and told him to poop in a 5-gallon bucket in the back of the truck. Like in the employee who quit, like on the spot, it's like, this is ridiculous. Came back and told home base what had happened. And it is interesting how I think the one thing that has always consistently surprised me about what it means to be an entrepreneur and a business owner is the importance of really good people skills. and the ability to be able to lead and motivate people and inspire people and show appreciation. And words matter. I mean, there's a very, very wise proverb that says that the tongue is sharper than any two-edged sword, and the wrong sentence, the wrong phrasing, the wrong tonality can make all the difference in the world with regards to whether or not someone actually wants to be a part of the team. And I think that all just kind of translates as well to the system side of it too, and how you sell the why of what they have to be doing, and why that needs to be in place.
I mean, we talked before about like your initial, what was the first business that you grew? It was like the window washing.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that's the first one,
Okay.
but because, basically I started with my dad washing windows.
Yeah.
The day I turned 18, I got a window cleaning business. Like, that was actually like my first business. I did not grow that though.
Okay.
I ran it very much like my dad, owner operator. And then I continued to do the owner operator DIY death trap for several businesses, including a construction business, a graphic design business, a few other things. I sold Cutco knives for a while. I think we bonded on that one, didn't we?
Yeah, it's a great skill to learn though.
But it wasn't until later where I really started and that was a window cleaning business. I came full circle and kind of came back to that when I.
So the question that I was going to come ask you then is like, what changed internally for you to transition from being this person who couldn't let go to anything to being able to scale a business? I mean, you were kind of out of necessity with your dad's health, right? But like, what were the big things that changed for you that you allowed you to do that? Or is it just maturity and age?
This is going to be a terrible answer, but it's going to be the truth. The biggest reason why I decided to get out of the field and stop being such a bottleneck, I believe, is genuinely rooted in a little bit of laziness. And there's one of my favorite characters, Tom Sawyer, and the Tom Sawyer effect, where he had a fence to paint and he didn't want to paint the fence. He wanted to play. So what he did was inspired and convinced a bunch of his friends to come and paint the fence. And they thought it was the best thing ever. And they painted the whole fence and were having a great time doing it. And Tom also was having a great time doing what he wanted to do as well. And I will say that was probably continues to be one of my biggest motivators. Now, I'm not inherently lazy. I like to work hard, but it has more to do with, I don't like to do tasks. I like to think creatively. I like to explore a lot higher level vision type of things. And then when I am doing tasks, I feel like I'm dying inside and I just cannot get myself motivated to do it. So the reason why I started building teams and then subsequently became obsessed with systems, I hate the way that it feels when I'm a bottleneck to a situation because I can't motivate myself to go do something. And that's what actually ultimately has driven me to hire people and then make sure that they don't have to come to me for any questions. Like there's always a resource, there's a training, there's a document, there's a video. And anyone that comes to me with a question that I haven't documented, like as I give them that answer, I document it. So now it exists somewhere else. They don't have to come to me ever again, and just systematically kind of getting out of that because I hate doing those things. I absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's an important lesson too, in terms of like systemizing your business. And I mean, even your personal life too, but specifically in the business for this example is like, if your team asks you a question twice, whether it's like a day apart, a week apart, a month apart, if they ask you the same question twice, that means you need a FAQ somewhere. You need a video or a training or resource or document explaining that. So next time they ask you that question, you just don't reply. You just send them that document.
Yeah. And it doesn't take a whole lot of time to create these. I've talked to a lot of business owners where they feel like they have to sit down and design this big LMS and design this big thing. And it takes lots of time. You don't need to do that. All you need to do is document it while you do the process. And I tell business owners, this is what's called a +1. Okay, you have to go out in the field. You don't want to go out in the field, but you have to go out in the field. You have to go out and take care of this weird, complicated, nuanced thing, whether it's a unique painting project or an existing condition that kind of only you know how to solve. Great. Do the +1 of videoing exactly what that scenario is so it can be saved for later, or get a testimonial from the customer. There's a +1. Get some before and after photos, turn it into a marketing thing. Just one extra additional work on the business thing that is on top of whatever the work in the business thing is.
Okay. And so you would typically do that through a video?
Yeah, usually. Most of the times, video is my best friend. I have on my phone the Loom app. Best app ever. I use
Is it pretty usable?
it, dude, it's crazy usable. The best reason why is that, one, it actually captures high resolution screen recordings, but it also can have your picture on there as well, and your camera that's there. And so you can talk to it, you can show things, you can flip the camera around front and backwards. It saves it as a link that's stored online, so you can send a link to somebody. And I use this all the time when I delegate projects because I hate writing things out. But then the video can be downloaded, and you can download the actual MP4 file of that, and then you can put it into a Google Drive and name it a specific name for your training video. So Loom, one of my all-time favorite tools.
So another like little extra hack that you can do with videos now is you can take that MP4 and you can upload it to ChatGPT,
Yeah.
and you can say create a written process from this video, and it
Yeah.
will watch the video quickly and it will write it all out for you.
Well, and Loom will actually take the transcripts. So you get the transcripts when you record it on Loom, and then you can copy and paste those transcripts over as well.
Yep.
And Loom even does kind of like some AI summaries. But yeah, having a matching SOP checklist, some kind of format for it, it's insane how quickly AI is changing the whole systemization process of a business, if people are actually using it, which I think most people don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most people, I mean, from my experience, when it comes to like creating systems, I mean, the term system is so overused, and I think it's gotten a little bit like people put that word on a pedestal. It's like, oh, my business needs systems. Well, what the heck does that even mean? If you just change that word to checklists, it makes it so much easier to like swallow. Like, of course, not all systems are checklists, but if you just had a series of 50 checklists, your business could operate without you.
Yeah, my favorite definition for the word system: a system is a documented process on how to do something important in your business. The key word is documented, and it can be documented through a checklist, a video, a written format. It can be a laminated something that you stick to the side of your pressure washer so that your team knows exactly from start to finish how to start a pressure washer and how to troubleshoot it.
But I mean, in reality, all of that can be distilled down to a checklist, whether it's a
It can,
video or it's a document or whatever. It's a checklist. It's a
it
different
can
way.
be.
It's a checklist.
Yeah, there's different learning styles. There's been lots of different studies on how people best learn. There's kinesthetics, there's auditories, there's visuals, different learning styles. And all steps of a process, just putting a system in place too doesn't always solve the problem, because you can have it documented and no one looks at it.
Yeah,
You
you
can
need
have a
adherence.
checklist, no one uses it. Having a software where like the checklist is embedded in, where it's digital and you cannot close a job out until you actually finish that checklist. I think those types of systems are important because it puts the three steps of the training process in place: tell, show, and watch. So we have a system, great. We're going to tell them about the system. We're going to show them how to use the checklist. And then the third one is we're going to watch them do the checklist, and we're going to keep watching them until we know that it's happening on autopilot. And no more do we have to worry about whether or not that checklist gets done. I know a lot of business owners, they kind of forget about that watch step. They just complain, well, they're not following the checklist. They're not doing it. Well, have you actually watched them for long enough to ensure that it's been a habit? Well, no, I showed them, I told them, but I missed that watch part. Dang it. That's the annoying part. That's the people management part skill that if you're missing, you really, really struggle. I
Yep.
struggle, especially.
There's even like back in College Pro in the student painting days, and Nick Slavic talks a lot about this concept, which is doragi. You heard that one?
Doregi?
Doragi. So
Doregi.
DORAGI. Do, or demonstrate, observe, re-demonstrate, assign a goal, and inspect. So specifically when you're training like a painting skill, so first thing you're going to do is demonstrate the skill. All right. Then you're going to observe them, try it. Then you're going to re-demonstrate it.
Mm,
And then you're going to assign a goal. It's okay. I want you to paint this window frame. It should take you 15 minutes.
mm.
You assign the goal. So then they go and do it, hopefully with a stopwatch, and you come back and then you inspect.
That's awesome. I
Rinse
love
and
that.
repeat. So that's on the technical side, but you could apply that to any, really any skill. If you're teaching a technical thing on Excel, you could follow that exact same process, and just, it's all about transferring the skill.
Yeah, 100%. And it's so easy to use AI tools to be able to generate like a syllabus or a checklist, or what steps are, provided you're actually prompting it well, and you're assigning exactly what the thing is and what the nuances are of your business. I think a lot of people miss that with AI, but it can
Yes.
output extremely good results.
So yesterday, well, it launched today, and it's the 19th. I did a 30-minute solo episode just talking about AI and how we're using ChatGPT, and it the big difference now in human behavior is, previous to last year, to create something, you're responsible for the output, right? If you wanted to create a document, you had to actually create the whole thing. But now it shifts where you're not responsible for the output, you're actually responsible for the input. And there's a
That's
lot
so
of nuance and skill that goes into creating a good input. Like, some of my inputs are like paragraphs long, giving context, giving background, explaining how I want my response, and then hitting enter. And what chat, and I actually just started using Grok as well. It's really incredible. What they do is they jump to conclusions.
Yep.
Like, you give them information, they will jump to conclusions. So it's up to you to ensure you give them as much information as you possibly can so that they jump to the right conclusion.
Do you use deep research? Do you use ChatGPT Pro?
I use the $20 a month, not the $200 a month one.
Dude, do the $200 a month. I'm telling you right now, I promise you, it is worth it. It is 10 times better than having an EA when it comes to research projects. And an EA you're going to spend way more money for. It has changed the game for us with things, and I use it just about daily.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll tee it up with something. I walk away, it's working on it for 10, 15 minutes, and it'll come back with a PhD level thesis. It searches, it cites sources. It's insane.
Wow.
And one thing that I like to tell people is the best way to use AI is to think of it as $100,000 an hour consultant. And you get a brief window of time to talk to this person. But what they say is, hey, you can send me the longest email in advance with all the information about your business. I'll read it all, won't charge you for it. So I'll only charge you for the time that we're actually face to face, but you can give me as much context as you want. We only meet for 1 minute. I mean, what will you give that consultant in the body of the email to get them? You give them everything. You would talk about your history and your background, how you got started, what it is now, what all your business services are, what your branding is, your name, your customers, like everything. And that nuance of it will make all the difference in the world of the quality of your outputs. If you say, build me a checklist for a painting company for painting walls, you're going to come back and say, this is trash. But if you talk about what type of paints you use, what your current process is, what you want your process to look like, what this looks like, and how what the nuances are, and you give it all the context, and you take the time to think about how you're going to write that email in advance, the output's 100 times better. And I think that's the important nuance to get.
Well, I know the paid model too. There's the voice agent.
Yeah. I don't like the voice agent. I do like using the voice recorder. So
you got to change the tone of voice then. You got to be someone you want to talk to.
You know what? The reason why I don't like the voice agent is that I like to read, and because I like to go back and like really kind of process and think. When my ADD kicks in, I will like not hear what someone says for 15 seconds. And then sometimes the responses are too long and florally. And I'm like, I don't, no, reset. Like, I don't want to keep talking about this. Let's move on to the next thing. But voice recorder is what I use for 90% of the time, where I'll just hit the microphone button and I'll talk for 4 minutes, and then it turns it all into text.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Text off, and then I get the text output back. Like, I don't type anything into ChatGPT anymore. I just literally will say, all right, so here's what I'm thinking about, and this is what I want to look, and this is what I like. And I just literally pace back and forth in the yard for 4 minutes and just kind of talk. And that makes a really big difference as far as like how we use it.
Well, I mean, Elon talks about like bit rates and data transfer rates. And like when you're typing, your data transfer rate is like 80 words a minute, right? You can speak at about 200 words a minute. So that like triples, just about triples your output. Yeah, then we just got to
Are
go.
we going to be the Neuralink candidates? Was that the
maybe
full?
not candidates yet, but maybe give it like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. See what happens to what animals get their brains melted when they start putting it and installing it and get all the bugs worked out of it first.
Well, I mean, there's already the humans there's those guys that can play like chess online and play, and like monkeys that play Pong. It's crazy.
Yeah, I know it's a Wild West, man. It's the Wild West. And I think that anyone who's not taking the time to just kind of become a student of this and use these tools, I'm nervous for them. I really am. I see some of these people, it's, makes fun of AI outputs and makes fun of, the Will Smith eating spaghetti videos and how stupid AI is. Like, you don't even understand. You don't even know what's coming and what's already happened and what just got released yesterday. It's never ending.
Yeah. It's just like when the internet was when the internet revolution, it's not that the internet is going to take your jobs, but the people who use the internet are going to take your jobs. And now AI is definitely getting to that point where if you're not using it on a consistent, multiple time per week period, just staying familiar with it, you don't have to understand what's going on the back end, but just to like stay familiar with it and keep up with it and know how to use it a little bit, it's going to put you it's going to at least keep you relevant a bit longer.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And I think that what I personally predict is there's going to be a reversion where people are going to get so tired of AI content and not knowing if something's real and feeling like, oh, this influencer, it's just their AI video. Even if it looks exactly like them, sounds exactly like them, there just will be that thought where I think a new differentiator will be that it's not done by AI. It's actually done by a real human, and it's actually done by person. And there will be an appreciation for that at some point. How long that stays and whether it waffles back and forth and ends up ultimately shifting back, I think we'll kind of yet to determine. But the people side of the equation, the connection side, I don't think that that'll ever go away. I think that will continue to become probably even more important, and working on your ability to be able to communicate with people and, use this for yourself. I use AI as my own personal tutor, and I use it to educate. I'm almost not reading books these days because I will much rather read a 20, minute long synopsis by deep research on a topic that I'm actually super interested in. And it's the most relevant current information that I can read. And it's tailored specifically to me. And I don't have to think about, well, how do I interpret this $100 million offers by Alex Hormozy? I input Alex Hormozy's book. I tell her the context of my thing, and then it comes back and it literally custom tailors it specifically to me.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the crazy unlock I think a lot of people are missing, is how you can get this custom bespoke education and collapse your speed of learning to a really high technical degree. If you start using this and start thinking about how can I be good about writing prompts and how can I be good about using this as a tool for myself, the level of education and learning I've done is like nothing I've ever had before, just because, I'm leaning into it more.
All right. Well, I just signed up for ChatGPT Pro.
All right.
I'm gonna play with that and up my game there.
Deep research.
So I guess just like going full circle now back to, things that are relevant and useful for people. AI is definitely relevant and useful, but just like on the day-to-day process orientations right now, we talked about like your tendency to be like lazy, which is a human tendency, right? Like that's why remote controls exist, because we didn't want to get our butts off the couch and change the TV channel, right? What are some like practical?
Can I use the word efficient? Can I change my word from lazy to efficient?
No, it's in the record book already.
Dang it.
Yeah, I think it's I mean, efficient's fair. And I'm the same way. When there's a skill when there's a task that you're doing that you don't need to be doing, your time is better spent elsewhere. You need to up level and figure out how to get out of that task. So if you could break down, and I've talked about it before, but like, what's your process for getting out of tasks that you don't feel like you should be doing anymore?
I mean, I'm not kidding when I say that Loom is one of the absolute favorite tools that I use to be able to delegate tasks to somebody else. I do not like writing things out. I don't like explaining things in an email or typing everything out to someone to say, here's what you need to do, having screenshots. With Loom, I can click one button. I can show whatever's on my screen. I can brain dump. I can get it out. And there's a 7-step process that I like to follow for delegating that makes it very, very easy, to be able to like start kind of getting these things done. And that process allows me to, actually make sure that someone's set up for success.
So what's the 7 steps?
You want me to dive into it?
Let's dive into it. Is D, demonstrate?
Dorig, yeah. No, I don't have a fancy acronym for it. Well, actually, that's not true. I do have a fancy acronym for it. It's RED. So before I give someone the green light, I give them the red light, which is to stop first. And so R stands for responsibility. What is the responsibility? What's the why? Why is this important? What is the thing that we're going to be doing? And walking through those side of the things. The second one is empowered. What are all the resources that they have available to be able to use? What information do I have in my brain that they need to know and possess in order to make this successful? Sometimes we come back to someone and we're confused as to why they haven't done something the way that we would have done it. It's because, well, I'll talk about this maybe after this. There's 4 levels of competency. And oftentimes we speak from a higher level and we know things that they don't know and they can't know unless we tell them. So we have to empower them with the resources, what they can use. Do they have a budget for this? And then the third part, D, stands for deadline. So there has to be a deadline and accountability mechanism. Hey, here's what this priority is. This is when this needs to get done by. And we have a calendared event and time where we're going to be checking in to make sure that it's gotten done. And then there's that, that accountability part of, okay, now it's going to happen. Instead of just delegating something, 2 weeks go by. Why hasn't this been done? Well, I didn't know that you needed it right away. Like, it's always the fault of the person who delegates the task as to why that hasn't finished. I know I said 7 steps to delegation. Those are kind of nested inside of those 3. I remember red light, green light, just because it's simple for me. But each of those steps kind of like break apart in there. And the last one could be, some kind of a reward. Have a reward process for them that, hey, if you get this done by a certain time, this deadline, there's a $500 bonus for getting this project done and on time and under budget. And that's where, maybe that 7th step could kind of come into play.
So let's apply this. It's a good framework. Let's just apply this to a common situation that most tradespeople go through. And let's say delegating production management, bringing on a production manager and letting go of the reins. Mm-hmm. Say someone has their painting business, they have a few crews. Right now they're running around all the time and they make an external hire for a project manager or a production manager. This person has the skills, needed, the experience, but how do you get someone like that trained up on your systems and business as efficiently as possible?
Well, one of the first things before I kind of dive into the red framework will be, you want to get the right person in the right seat. You want to bring someone on the team that can tell you what to do rather than always just have to tell them what to do. Especially what I see with production managers is that they may take a technician that's really good and promote them into a production manager role, when that person should not be a production manager at all. They don't have management experience. They haven't gone out and done the thing that you want to do. And if you have a whole team full of people that have never done where you want to go, it's like the team that gets you here is not the team that's going to get you there. You have to bring new team members on that come with experience that can say, hey, here's how we're going to install a FIFO system in your warehouse. Here's how we're going to have load plans for your vehicles. And they're telling you how you need to streamline and better your operations rather than you just telling them step by step. Especially with managers, it's important. Delegation kind of becomes a little bit less important, and it's more about leadership and ensuring that they're set up and empowered, but you want the right person in the right seat.
And that's a good time to just remind everyone that this episode is sponsored by HireBus. I could do the ad read right now, but I think we're good with you here.
Yeah. Well, you want me to read the ad? Is that what you want me to do? No. Well, I will say that if this is one of the things that we do specialize with HireBus is we actually have a score. We have a benchmark for a production manager that scores them on a scale of 1 to 10 based on their behaviors, experience, and skill sets as to whether or not they'll actually be a good fit. With Hire, we actually will interview all the candidates before you even talk to them. So we go out, we source them, we find them, we tee them up, we interview them, and then we set you up with just the top 3%. And our goal is to get people the top 3% of talent without you having to post an ad on Indeed or deal with communicating with 200 different candidates.
Yeah.
So there you go. There's the pitch.
Huge time saving, right? So if like you talk about, we often talk about like your value of activity per hour, like $50 an hour tasks, $500 an hour, 5,000. So your company's basically doing a whole bunch of $500 an hour tasks for the business so that the business owner can leverage their time better.
It's funny. I've talked to people about $10,000 an hour tasks, and a lot of people get stuck on like, okay, sure. How does that even work? Like, I don't understand how something could be worth it.
Not getting bought into the concept.
Can I share a quick story to highlight a real $10,000 an hour plus task from an actual friend of mine?
Sure.
So here's a case of how something can be a $10,000 an hour task. The gentleman's name is Brandon Vaughn. He owns a multi-million-dollar cleaning business. It wasn't a multi-million-dollar when he did this thing, but what he did was he noticed that his closing ratios for when he'd give a quote to when a customer would book was a little bit low. So he thought, I want to intentionally just work on trying to make that experience better and see if I can make our closing rates go up. So that's like the intention. This is not, I want to go out and wash windows or go do stuff. This is like, I want to work on the business, on something that's important. So what he did is he took one afternoon, gave someone his cell phone and recorded videos of him talking to customers, telling them about why they should work with his company next level and what it would be like and what that experience would be like. And it was quick. It was literally just an afternoon. And he took those videos and he put them into the follow-up experience and the salesperson experience on every single quote that was given. 7% increase in his closing ratio from one afternoon worth of work. So he spent about 6 hours of time. When he took 7% closing ratio and you expand that out over the course of a year, that literally represented 6 figures worth of additional revenue just because he spent 6 hours doing something very intentional and working on his business. You divide that up, that's way more than $10,000 an hour. And there's a lot of stuff that you can work on in your business. Like you implement a training system that has lifetime impact to your business because now every employee, every single person is going to use that for years. So it's like, okay, you can do a few hours worth of work here intentionally, but the long-term gains is so much better than when I have a task that my business needs me to do today, like paint a house. And then as soon as that's done, the value's finished and completed. But these $10,000 plus hour tasks, this is really where you start to do time, energy, efforts that pay back for years. And that's kind of the work on the business part, is that lasting impact. So anyways, that's the $10,000 an hour exercise I think everyone should kind of go through.
I mean, that's definitely a good one.
Thank you. That's it. That's all I get. Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, the challenge that people have when trying to like stomach this concept of like a $10,000 hour is that like I work for the hour, I don't make $10,000 that hour, right? There's the long tail where you reap the rewards. The example that I use is like if you hire a painter and it takes you 10 hours of solid recruiting effort to hire a painter, and this painter can go on and produce for you $150,000 per year or $75,000 in gross profit. You take that 75,000 divided by the 10 hours that you put in to hire them, and that's a $7,500 an hour activity.
Yeah.
Right. That's a pretty easy one. But I think that, again, the challenge for people's brains is like, okay, yeah, but then I got to train them, and then I got to find work for them, and then I got to do marketing, and then I got to do HR, and then I got to do payroll. Like, yes, there's those other things too, but those 10 hours that you put in unlocks your ability to have that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. The ability to be able to, hey, I'm going to now replace 10, 20 hours a week of my time this week, not doing something that I can now use to go do something that will actually make me more money. And I can get someone else to come in and do that takes that off. Even if I make a little bit less, I can multiply those efforts with multiple painters.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to revisit the production manager part again? Because I know I kind of squirreled out a little bit, which I have a tendency to do.
Yeah, we can do that. But I was just thinking about like that next level thing. If you hired someone, a director of recruiting, you made their mission to hire 10 painters,
Mm-hmm.
and it took you 10 hours to hire that director of recruiting, it just, the value per hour really goes up from there. But you have to earn the right to have time in those upper echelons.
Yeah, that's true. And now I just like to hire GMs and CEOs for the companies that I go out and buy. And then that time is really starts to kind of compound, which gets really fun.
Yeah, I got to get to that spot.
Okay, so the production manager side of things, when we kind of go back to setting them up for success, we talked about right person. One thing that I think about with a production manager is, okay, what's the responsibility? If our COGS, our cost of goods sold for the product that we deliver, which is painting, does not meet a certain threshold of percentage against revenue, our business will never scale. If it costs you 60% of what you're charging to pay for painters and paint, you're never going to be profitable no matter what you do. Because as it continues to grow, your overhead, all that stuff impacts. So you have to kind of stay at a certain threshold and ratio. Your production manager, that's his responsibility or her responsibility. They own the gross margin of your business and that COGS percentage. So for me, I always incentivize my production managers on a bonus structure where if they hit certain tiers of gross margin, they get a monthly bonus. So they're empowered to receive, I give them a profit and loss statement and access to be able to look at the profit and loss where they can drill down on every expense that lives inside of COGS because that's what they own. And amazing things happen when they start ordering materials. They're a little more careful and thoughtful of, is there waste happening? If there's overtime, let's try to curb that. Let's try to figure out how to maximize that efficiency. Their pay lives down under general sales and administrative costs down here on the P&L. So they can actually artificially inflate their gross margin if they go out in the field and work because their pay doesn't impact in those COGS. So if a production manager really wants to make their bonus and someone calls out sick, they go out and do the work, then they can actually keep that capacity on track and keep their COGS kind of maintained. And I really like that because especially when you're small and you just start getting your first production manager, people think that this is just a desk job. They come in and now the production manager's like in the office, they're doing the thing like, When you're small, your production manager typically has to go out in the field and assist with production, training, a floater. And yeah, maybe you get to the point where your business, that production manager is purely just in the office and has assistants and things, but that's not until millions in revenue. Like when you first get your production manager, likely they're going to have to do some of that production. So they own that. They own all the responsibilities of like the reporting on the gross margin, callbacks, fix-its, hiring and firing employees, doing performance reviews. And one thing that I do with my production managers is I put recurring appointments on their calendar for all their big tasks and things that they need to do. So they never have the excuse, well, I didn't have time to do that because I had to do X, Y, and Z. It's like you put all the important, managerial reporting things, inventory, all of that stuff, performance reviews in their
One-on-ones?
Automated. Absolutely. Yeah. I put one-on-ones in there as well, performance reviews. And that's all automated. So it just happens, every X amount of months when they do those appointments, stand up safety meetings, et cetera. And then they can use the time to kind of fill in with, the other stuff that they feel like is important.
So you're telling me that in order to have a successful role, you need to put a lot of thought into the KPIs.
Yes, absolutely. Super, super critical.
Yeah.
I actually have a cool thing if people are interested in getting this. I have a written job description for every single position inside of a $20 million painting business. And if you want access to it, go to hirebus.com/Oasis jobs. And you go to that link and it will literally email you a packet of every single job description that exists inside of a painting business. And when you go there, you can copy them, you can replace, you search and replace, you'll figure all the things, but everything from production manager to rehash specialist, salespeople, even CEO, CFO, COO, all the positions. And it's really, really eye-opening to be able to see like what are some of those key responsibilities and KPIs that each of these positions, kind of own and are responsible for.
I definitely want to see that. The page you sent me to isn't working, so we'll have to get that link fixed before we post this.
Oh, it's definitely working though. Oasis/Oasis jobs. No worries. The people that are watching this right now, they'll be able to hop on and go do it.
Cool. We'll put the link below in the chat so they can just click on it.
Cool.
So setting the KPIs. I think one thing that I kind of noticed as you were talking about that and the KPIs is that you're not saying, like, one thing that a lot of people, I would say, comp their production managers on is just like a % of production, right? That's the most common thing that I see. Or you get 3% of produced jobs.
Right.
How would you shift that into a gross profit incentive so that their incentives are aligned with yours as a business owner?
Well, I think that like percentage of revenue is not necessarily a bad metric to do, but is it possible that we can have really high revenue with really bad margins? Yeah, absolutely it can be. So, it's the same kind of reason why revenue's for vanity and profit is for sanity. It's not my production manager's job to increase revenue. That's a sales team's job. And it's sales responsibility to drive up revenue. If the sales team goes out and crushes it and they're getting all kinds of revenue coming in and now my production manager's bonuses is going up, that doesn't really quite make sense. I want him to make sure that the gross margin stays tight no matter what the revenue margins are. Now, could you have like a small percentage of what that overall gross margin is? Yeah, because then it becomes inherently maybe a little bit more difficult to maintain good margins as you go, rather than just like a strict percentage. Maybe you could do it based on the dollar amount of the gross margin, but I don't like top line being the ultimate identifier of what that looks like. And here's the reason why. If gross margins look bad and it's actually the sales team's fault because they're selling jobs for too cheap, you better believe that production managers are going to be all over you and banging the drum that the sales team's doing something wrong. Maybe otherwise wouldn't have said anything because it's not a problem. When you have people incentivized on the same things as what the business ultimately needs to be focused on, you have more eyeballs on those important KPIs that start those conversations like, hey, there's a problem over here. Let's go figure this out. So even our technicians, they get incentivized on revenue per hour and they get revenue per hour bonuses. So if a job is undersold or the admin team is routing them from up here to over here and then back over to here and it's super inefficient, they're going to raise their hand and say, hey, what the heck? This is impacting me. Okay, great. Thanks for telling me. High five. We're going to get this fixed and solved. So it's just getting more people aligned on the same business goals that you have.
Mm-hmm. And how would you deal with that dichotomy of sales underselling, underpricing a job versus production overproducing a job?
I go back to the sales team and we take a look at our standardized pricing and find out if something's broken there. If, I have to set thresholds on what's the maximum amount that the sales team is able to discount jobs. And then we look at things on a case by case basis. So if there is a job that is wildly underpriced and it's due to no fault of the sales team because they just follow the standard pricing, but we don't have a variable, multiplier factor for, this type of surface that we're painting. Well, okay, now we're going to put in that multiplier into our pricing system to fix that problem. Everything can be solved with an algorithm, with a calculation, and it just starts the inspection process to see what part of the system is broken. If it is actually priced correctly and it follows our systems, and we know that it's there, and we have historical data that says that we should be able to get that revenue done in time, then it goes back to the production side and says, okay, what's the issue going on here? What's happening. And then as you start to look at job costing and margins on a specific job, you start seeing like, oh, the techs had to go back and forth and run all over the place to Home Depot and Sherwin-Williams to get all these supplies because inventory wasn't in stock. And so they had to go and pick stuff up, or they didn't do their weekly checklist for checking the inventory on their vehicles. And that's actually why it was wildly inefficient. So it's great to get the data and the KPIs on what's happening. The next layer is going in and being curious and starting to research and inspect and find out what's broken, and then how can we subsequently fix it.
Mm-hmm. So looking at sales, seeing how it was sold, looking at production, seeing how it was produced, and maybe there's a process missing or not being followed that needs to be, reminded of. And then basically whoever is not doing they're the one that takes the hit.
Yeah. And then for our sales teams, we actually have very clear guidelines that if they sell outside of the range that they're allowed to, like they have their standard discounts that they can give out and their standard offers. If we find out that they sold something beneath that, we have the right to charge them back on that or to not commission it at all. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to allow a salesperson to sell a job where we ultimately lose money on it. So will a salesperson do that from time to time? Of course they will. That's kind of part of it. But that feedback mechanism where maybe the first time they do that, I say, hey, this job technically is not commissionable. Next time you do this, you're not getting paid for this. I want to let this one be okay for now, but you should not be earning money. And I've had salespeople say, I get that. How about like, let's just like split it, or, I'll do the next one or something. Like sometimes they'll be a team player, but just give them that feedback as soon as you see those problems happening.
Yeah. And don't always, if it is like a missing process, sometimes the owner has to take the hit.
Ultimately we always do. We always take the hit with it. It can be very easy to point the fingers at other people, but when you point a finger at someone else, there's usually, 3 fingers pointing back at you. And so there's that to kind of consider too, that, hey, there's a problem inside of our business. Well, what system did we put in place to allow that to happen? What systems are missing? What guidelines? What training process? Usually it's a training process that is the ultimate reason for a failure of a system being applied.
Yeah. Well, man, I could talk to you all day, but unfortunately we're out of time for today. Stoked to have you at the mastermind.
Yeah.
in 6 weeks.
I'm excited to be there. The last time that we went, I was blown away. The quality of the people that you have in your mastermind. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I like going to masterminds like that is you have all these individuals that have decided to invest in themselves. And it's a different caliber of room than going to events that are just free, because it's not a problem to go to a free event. It takes almost no initiative whatsoever. But when you say, nope, I'm going to invest the money into this, the caliber of the person that shows up is different. And I felt that in your room. You have an unbelievable community. So excited to come back. It'll be great.
This one's going to be even bigger and better. We got some awesome speakers, and we got some fun surprises planned.
Cool. Look forward to it.
So what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
I would say probably one of the best ways is, go grab those job descriptions, hirebus.com/oasisjobs, and we'll email you that link there. If you are interested in hopping on and having a call with us to find out if we could help you find a great production manager, salesperson, technician, office manager, literally any position in your company, hirebus.com/paintergrowth. And we have a special offer for podcast listeners here. So hop over there, drop in your contact information, and schedule a call with us. Love to meet with you. Love to find out how we can help.
Love it. Sweet, man. As always, thanks for being here. You're an inspiration.
Appreciate you, man. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Painter Growth Podcast. If you want to grow your painting business, go to www.paintergrowth.com or click on the top link in the description. Talk soon.